Well, hey there, you guys. Welcome back once again to my Flickers of Fear movie review series. So, even though obviously 2024 is over now, and I've already done my 20 favorite horror movies of the year, that was the last video that I put up. But despite that, I'm still kind of, for whatever reason, just mopping up some lingering 2024 horror movies that I missed. And inevitably, I ended up watching one that most definitely would have been on the list, my favorite movies list, if I had seen it earlier. So, oh well. So this movie is called Daddy's Head. And this is a British supernatural slash folk horror kind of movie. It was written and directed by Benjamin Barfoot. I think this is his second feature-length film. This movie, it's a pretty low-key, slow burn. So I feel like, because I was reading the reviews, it's on Shudder, and I was reading the reviews, and it was about half and half. Like, some people thought, oh my god, this is brilliant, and then the other half were like, boring, you know what I mean? So if you're the kind of person that doesn't really like kind of slow burn kind of stuff, then you might find it boring, because not a lot happens in it. Well, it does, but you know what I mean? It takes a while. But honestly, I loved it. I thought it was great. The atmosphere of it is just like so eerie and really kind of like dread-inducing. And you only get a few glimpses of the monster, I guess you want to call it that. But the couple glimpses that you get are like creepy as hell. They did like a really good job like with the creature design. And the acting and the cinematography are also outstanding. Now it's sort of slightly reminded me of The Babadook, at least in terms of the monster being a sort of manifestation of grief type of situation. So if you liked The Babadook, you might dig this as well. It's not exactly the same, but it's kind of in a similar ballpark, if you know what I'm saying. So we're following this young woman named Laura. And her new husband, James, has just been killed in a horrible car accident. Now, you don't really get many of the details of the accident, like what exactly happened, but it must have just like obliterated his face, at least, like beyond all recognition, because there's actually a scene where they're visiting him in the hospital, like before they turn the life support off, and you can't even see his face. It's just completely covered in bandages. So you're led to assume that his face was just like totally crushed and totally destroyed, which kind of plays a little bit into the manifestation of the monster later on. Now, James was actually a widower. He'd been married before, but his previous wife had died. And him and his deceased first wife, they had a son named Isaac, who looks about 11 or 12 years old to me. I'm not good at like judging kids' ages, but that's about how old the kid looked to me. Now, Isaac, of course, is just completely beside himself because he's just lost both of his parents suddenly, like in a quite brief span of time. And what's worse, he's now stuck with Laura, who is his new stepmom, and he barely knows her, and he doesn't really seem to like her all that much either. Now, James was actually quite a successful architect, I believe, and so Laura inherits this beautiful modern house that he built, like out in the woods, as well as, they mentioned that he owned several other properties, and there was a very, very generous life insurance policy on him as well. So she's pretty much financially set, in other words, probably for life, the way they're talking. But the kid, Isaac, is kind of a whole other matter, right? So child services are coming in and telling her kind of her options, and they're like, okay, well, what you can do, you can either take over guardianship of the kid, or you can give up custody to the state, which would mean that Isaac would most likely like end up in the foster system because he doesn't have any other relatives. Now, although her relationship with Isaac is very strained, and she actually never really wanted children, she agrees to kind of, I'll look after him for now. We'll kind of reassess like later on, just in honor of her husband. And she thinks that that's what he would have wanted. Now, Isaac, of course, is really, really not happy about this. So he's acting like pretty sullen and kind of surly toward her. Not as bratty as like the kid from the Babadook, like not by a long stretch. But, he's mostly just retreats into his room playing video games and drawing and doesn't really talk to her or anything like that. Now, Laura is obviously, she's just lost, her new husband. They haven't been married that long. So she's having her own issues as well, obviously. One of those things, it's implied that she used to be an alcoholic, but got sober at some point. But the stress of James's death and dealing with Isaac causes her to start drinking again, which, like I said, not surprising. Now, she does have some support. There is actually kind of a very kind caseworker / child psychologist who comes and checks on the kid every now and then and, gives him therapy and stuff like that. And she also has a very close friend, and I'm assuming it's a neighbor because he can kind of come over like quickly. His name is Robert. Now, he was also friends with James. He was like James's best friend. But Laura kind of feels bad burdening Robert with her problems since he's also in the middle of a divorce and he has 2 daughters of his own to raise. So she does kind of call him when she's kind of hitting bottom, but she feels kind of guilty about it. Now, James, the husband, he's actually buried on the property, like next to his first wife, because she was buried there too. Laura is not too keen about this. Obviously, I guess as you wouldn't be because it's a little bit weird, but she kind of goes along with it. That was, what he wanted. Now, not too long into the story, the family dog Bella, who very much does not make it, so just be warned. I know I'm the same. It's like, I want to know, does the animal die at this? Yes, the dog dies in this. And it's pretty horrible. So yeah, just warning you ahead of time. So the dog starts barking incessantly, like towards the woods for, it seems like no reason. Like they can't really see anything out there that she's barking at. There are also like these weird lights out in the woods at night, sometimes like almost like headlights or like police lights, like blue flashing lights or something like that. But you can't really tell what they are. And one morning, Laura gets up and there's like a bunch of smoke out in the trees, and it's as though there's like a brush fire. But so she calls the fire brigade, honestly, but they look all around and they can't find the source of it. Like there's no fire and they can't figure out where the smoke is coming from. So Laura is, she's out at this, beautiful but kind of isolated house. And it's like this, it's a cool looking house, actually. Like in the front of it is kind of all glass walls, so you can like look out into the woods. And so she's starting to feel like a little bit uneasy and weirded out, and like maybe she doesn't want to live out here with just her and the kid, like by herself, And then one night, both Laura and Isaac see some thing on the living room floor, kind of like back in the shadows. It's kind of hard to tell what it is, but it just kind of looks like a like a lump of something, you know what I mean? So yeah, they can't really tell what it is, but Bella is barking at it like crazy. And then, like, while they're looking at it going, what the fuck is that thing? Like, it suddenly, like, takes off and, like, starts scuttling through the house. And it ultimately, like, crashes out through Isaac's bedroom window, like, while Bella chases it, like, through the house. Now, so the only thing they can think of, because it moved like that, was that it was some kind of animal that got into the house somehow. But, the whole situation is a little unsettling, to say the least. So then, like, more weird stuff happens. Like, all the plants on James's grave, because they planted, like, all these flowers and stuff on it, are all, like, torn up and destroyed. There's this big knife, like the main cut, the big chef's knives, like, from the kitchen. It goes missing. It actually doesn't go missing from the kitchen because Laura took it from the kitchen, like, with the whole animal incident, and she put it in her nightstand, like, next to the bed. But it goes missing from there, and she can't figure out where it went. So there was that. And then, even more bizarre, Isaac is walking out in the woods one day and finds this massive, very folk horror-y looking structure, like made out of tree branches. It kind of looks like a cabin, but if it was designed by MC Escher, you know what I mean? Like it has this triangular opening and then like it kind of goes off in like all these weird, it's kind of cool looking, you know what I mean? Now he assumes, as you would, that his dad built it, but he doesn't really know when that would have happened. Now, as the story goes on, Isaac starts hearing what he presumes is his father, like, calling his name, like, in this really creepy, like, croaky voice. And after a while, he starts to see him, too. But his dad doesn't look quite the same as he did when he was alive. Like, he has his dad's face, but the rest of him kind of looks like this black, almost like spidery or insecty looking creature. Like, he has human arms and legs, I think, and is roughly human sized, but he's just like kind of distorted looking, you know what I mean? But he still kind of looks like a person, but it's just like skin is just like looks black and slick, like almost like a bug. Now, naturally, nobody believes Isaac when he insists that his father is still alive and is living in this weird structure like out in the woods. So, I mean, Laura and the caseworker, as they would, think he's just, he's having a really hard time processing his dad's death and is letting his imagination run away with him. But it turns out that this thing is absolutely real. It's just not who or what Isaac thinks it is. So I thought this was a really spooky movie. I mean, it really went more with like the slow buildup of dread rather than like wall-to-wall monster action. And I think it was a lot more affecting for that. I really also liked the relationship between Laura and Isaac. I think that was really well built up. And even though we can feel Laura's frustration at suddenly being thrust into single motherhood, you know, she's grieving her new husband, and then suddenly she's a single mother to a kid who can't stand her, who, like I said, she barely knows. But we also sympathize with the kid. I mean, his parents both died suddenly and left him in the care of who is essentially a person who's essentially a stranger to him. Now, I compared this earlier slightly to the Babadook, but Daddy's head seems less ambiguous as to whether the monster really exists or not. Because, like, in the universe of the movie, both Laura and her friend Robert eventually do see the creature. So it's plain that whatever it is, Isaac either conjured it into reality somehow, or, you know, his overwhelming negative emotions like attracted it to him, like, and then it took on the form of his dad, like, to get close to him for whatever nefarious purpose. In that second scenario, I would imagine that the creature would be something like a demon, but I kind of favor the first explanation, especially because of how imaginative Isaac is portrayed as and how weird and detailed all of his drawings are. I think it's kind of more implied that he conjured this creature into existence. So yeah, if you're really into kind of more subdued, like supernatural horror with like a slight folk horror element that's kind of more focused on character and atmosphere than, you know, maybe jump scares and gore. It does have a couple jump scares, but not that many. Then I feel like you would probably really dig this. The creature design is unnerving as shit. Like, it really kind of creeps me out, like the few shots of it. And I think it was the wise move to just like show it a couple of times, like, so it avoided losing the creep factor. You can see it like pretty clearly, but they don't show it a lot, you know what I mean? So as I mentioned, as of this recording in January of 2025, the movie is currently on Shudder. I believe it might be a Shudder exclusive, although it might be on Amazon Prime as well. It usually is. So if that sounds like something that you might like, then, you know, give it a whirl and let me know what you thought about it in the comments. And that will do it for this Flickers of Fear. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please remember, like, share, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you guys again on the next one. Bye.